The sun bled over the edge of the canyon, painting the river below in shades of red and gold. The air was heavy with dust and silence as a small band of Apache riders gathered on the stony bank. At their center stood a young woman, her legs bound, her eyes filled with fear and shame. Her name was Alya, once a proud daughter of the tribe, now paralyzed from the waist down after a raid gone wrong. In a land where survival demanded strength, weakness was seen as a curse. Her people had decided that the spirits no longer favored her. They spoke no words of comfort. The elder lifted his hand and two men stepped forward. Alya cried out, her voice breaking like dry branches in the wind. "Please, I can still weave, I can still sing for the children." But her pleas vanished into the wind. One of the men looked away as they dragged her closer to the river's edge. The water glistened, cold and unforgiving. Without ceremony, they pushed her in. The current swallowed her scream, carrying her limp body downstream as the tribe turned away, their silhouettes fading into the burning horizon. The water was colder than she imagined. It clutched her chest, dragging her under. Her arms flailed weakly, trying to fight the pull, but her legs refused to move. Panic turned to exhaustion. She felt the world fade into darkness as the river carried her through the canyon bends, her long black hair tangling in reeds. Her final thought before surrender was of the open sky she would never see again. Miles downstream, a lone cowboy named Jed Carver was repairing a broken fence post near his small riverside cabin. He was a quiet man, gray around the temples, the kind who spoke little but noticed everything. When he heard the faint echo of a scream carried on the wind, he paused. It wasn't the cry of an animal, it was human. Without a second thought, he sprinted toward the water, his boots pounding against the dry earth. At first, he saw nothing but rushing foam and broken branches. Then a flash of dark hair caught his eye, a woman's form twisting helplessly in the current. "Hold on," he shouted, diving in without hesitation. The icy shock of the river bit into his skin, but he fought his way toward her, the current slamming against his chest. He grabbed her arm just as she went under again, pulling her toward the shallows. When he reached the bank, she lay limp and pale, her breathing faint. Jed pressed his ear to her chest. There was a heartbeat, fragile but steady. He carried her to his cabin, wrapped her in blankets by the fire, and worked until her breathing evened out. When her eyes finally fluttered open, confusion and fear filled them. Where am I?" she whispered. "Safe," he said simply. "You're safe now." She tried to move, but pain shot through her back. Tears welled up in her eyes. "They threw me away," she said bitterly. Jed looked at her, his jaw tightening. No one deserves that. Over the next few days, he tended to her wounds, feeding her broth, keeping her warm. She learned his name and he learned hers. The silence between them slowly turned from awkward to peaceful. He built a small wooden chair with wheels so she could move around the cabin. When he handed it to her, she ran her fingers over the smooth wood, whispering, "You built this for me?" He shrugged. "Can't have you crawling on the floor." For the first time in weeks, she laughed, a quiet, fragile sound that filled the lonely cabin with warmth. Outside, life in the Wild West was harsh and unforgiving. Word spread through nearby camps that a white man was sheltering a crippled Apache woman. Some called him a fool, others a traitor. Jed didn't care. He had fought too many battles to worry about small men and their gossip. One afternoon, two ranch hands rode up, their expressions sour. "Heard you're keeping company with a squaw," one said. Jed didn't look up from his work. "She's got a name," he replied. "And she's under my protection." The men sneered, muttered curses, and rode off. Alya had watched from the window, tears filling her eyes, not of shame but gratitude. As spring gave way to summer, the bond between them grew deeper. Jed taught her how to shoot from her chair, steadying her hands until her aim was sure. She taught him words in her language, and sometimes when the nights were cool, she sang old Apache songs by the fire, songs of rain and healing. Though they came from worlds that had once clashed, they found peace in each other's presence. But peace was fragile in the frontier. One morning, Jed woke to the sound of hoofbeats, soldiers passing through looking for signs of Apache activity. Their leader, a young lieutenant, noticed Alya sitting by the window and demanded to know why she was there. Jed's voice turned cold. "She's my guest," he said. The lieutenant laughed. "That's one way to put it. We'll be taking her in." Jed's hand moved to his revolver. "You'll leave her right where she is." The standoff was brief but tense. The soldiers eventually rode off, but Jed knew trouble wasn't over. That night, as the stars blazed above the canyon, Alya spoke softly. "You risked your life for me again." He smiled faintly. "You'd do the same." She shook her head. "No. My people would never understand mercy the way you do." He leaned closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe they just forgot how." The moment lingered in the quiet warmth of the fire, neither daring to break it. Weeks later, a flash flood tore through the valley without warning. Jed tried to secure the horses, but the water rose fast. Alya called out from the porch, the fear in her voice cutting through the roar. The flood struck hard, sweeping debris toward the cabin. Without thinking, Jed ran to her, scooping her into his arms. The water surged around them, cold and violent, but he pushed through, holding her high. "I've got you," he shouted. They reached higher ground, both soaked, both gasping, but alive. When the storm passed, the valley lay silent again. The river that had once tried to take her life had nearly claimed them both, but it had also bound them together. As dawn broke, Alya looked at the rising sun and whispered, "Maybe the river carried me here for a reason." Jed smiled, setting down his hat beside her. Maybe it did. In the years that followed, the legend of the cowboy and the paralyzed Apache woman spread quietly through the frontier towns. Some said he married her. Others said they simply lived together until the end of their days. But those who passed by the old cabin near the Caban River would sometimes hear the faint sound of a woman singing in the wind. Soft, steady, and free.